as we hear His holy gospel. The holy gospel of our Lord Jesus Christ according to St. Matthew, chapter 10.
Glory to you, Lord Christ.
Jesus summoned the 12 disciples and gave them authority over unclean spirits to cast them out and to heal every kind of disease and every kind of sickness. Now the names of the 12 apostles are these. First Simon, who is called Peter, and Andrew his brother, James the son of Zebedee, and John his brother, Philip and Bartholomew, Thomas and Matthew the tax collector, James the son of Alphaeus and Thaddeus, Simon the Zealot, and Judas Iscariot, the one who betrayed him. These 12 Jesus sent out after instructing them, "Do not go in the way of the Gentiles, and do not enter any city of the Samaritans. Rather go to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. And as you go, preach, saying, the kingdom of heaven is at hand. Heal the sick, raise the dead, cleanse the lepers, cast out demons. Freely you receive, freely give." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Christ.
You may be seated. Last week, Jesus gave the command in the Great Commission. He told his disciples to go into all the world and preach the gospel, make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, and the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, because all authority has been given to him in heaven and on earth. Today we see him sending the disciples out on a mission. We'll get to that later. Some today is from Psalm 50. And notice something here. In the Psalm, it says that God summoned all the covenant people, those who have made a covenant with him by sacrifice, those who have ratified a covenant with him by sacrifice. And it includes the wicked. It includes the wicked. The wicked thought that God was just like them. They have these projections of God, human projections, human attributes that they projected on God, which to them were obviously acceptable as Christians, as believers of God. And if we do have that, those projections of what we thought God is, then we are making idols for ourselves. In verse 20 and 19 and 20 of Psalm 50, God says that the people use vile language. Their mouth drools with filth, and they damage with their words. St. Paul said in the New Testament, in Ephesians, instructed his readers to get rid of all bitterness, of all rage, anger, loud shouting, abusive speech, and all malice. Get rid of it, because those are not attributes of God. He continues and says, speak only what builds up and what gives grace to the hearer, because otherwise you are grieving the Spirit. If we speak something other than what builds up and gives grace to the hearer, we are grieving the Spirit. In another letter to the Galatians, St. Paul says, the fruit of the Spirit is love, peace, patience, kindness, gentleness, self-control. Christians' excuse sometimes is when they have anger, they say it's righteous. righteous indignation. And God's response to that is this: you thought I was just like you. You thought I get angry and so you get angry. You think that I use vile words and I use damaging words and abusive speech. You thought I was just like you, and so you act like this because you think you're acting like God. There are no righteous versions of the deeds of the flesh. Deeds of the flesh are these: bitterness, rage, anger, etc. Abusive speech. There are no righteous versions of those things. They, according to St. Paul, are in opposition to the Spirit. They are not attributes of God. Sometimes we project on God as well an attribute of that He is a murderer, that He kills, that He punishes, that He avenges in the name of justice, or how we understand justice. And these things are more deeply ingrained in us than we think or care to admit. Proverbs says, "And him who thinks he stands, take heed lest he fall." These things are obviously, from the spirit world, and they're subtle, they're deceptive, devious, and sometimes we don't know that we have fallen into their trap. Be humble and constantly ask God, if there be sin in me, bring it to the surface, Lord, let's deal with it. I want to know you more. I don't want a misunderstanding of who you are and what your attributes are and your ways, because I want to know you and I want to be like you. How do we know God? Look at Jesus, because Jesus is like God. Did He ever avenge? I mean, when He was on the cross, did He tell the Pharisees, the Roman soldiers, and the mob, and His disciples, did He tell them, wait 3 days, when I rise up again, and I will get you. And I will punish you as well, I will torture you as well, I will insult you, I will make you carry your cross, and I will crucify you. Did He ever say any of those things? No, because He's not an avenger. He doesn't retaliate, He doesn't punish, He doesn't inflict pain. He builds up. What did He do instead? From the cross, He spoke words of forgiveness. He said, Father, forgive them, they don't know what they're doing. He forgave those who inflicted pain on Him. See, sometimes with us, a desire to display toughness in the name of justice, sometimes it actually reflects insecurity, not toughness. Sometimes it reflects cowardice rather than courage. God is omnipotent. Jesus said, God has the ability to annihilate us, to destroy soul and body. But yet He doesn't do that. In fact, He said, after saying that, fear Him, do not fear your persecutors. If you will fear anyone, fear God, who can actually destroy body and soul. Yet He does not do that. Because what He says after that is, the sparrows are inexpensive, yet not one of them falls to the ground without the Father's knowledge. And yet you are more valuable than sparrows. And He concludes what He's saying by encouraging them and telling them, so do not be afraid. Because your God is not a destroyer. He has the ability, but He doesn't destroy. So He said, if you are to fear anyone, fear Him. Don't fear your persecutors, because God, who is merciful, has you in His hand and He's got your back. about the Father. He cares for us, He's merciful, and He expects us. He wants us to be merciful and kind as well. Be merciful and kind ourselves. In the Old Testament reading, God says that He wants Israel to be His own possession. A kingdom of priests, a holy nation. Reminds you of what Peter said, right, in his letter. He said that you are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a peculiar people, a people for God's own possession. Because you are holy, you're supposed to be different. That's what holy means. Different from the world. You're set apart. You're peculiar. You're not to be like others. And you're definitely not supposed to be like the hypocrites, the religious people, the covenant people, yet they are wicked. The violent people who clamored eye for an eye. You know, there was this woman caught in adultery that these religious elite brought before Jesus. And they were pressuring him to pronounce a sentence of death on her. They were ready to stone her. And Jesus tells them, he who has no sin, be the first to throw a stone at her. They were all trigger happy. They thought that was what they learned about God in the Old Testament. Yet Jesus reveals God as a merciful God, as a forgiving God. We are to be different from that attitude, from that way, from that attribute. We are to be peculiar and show the world a more excellent way. That's what St. Paul calls love, a more excellent way. We show them the way of God, the way of Jesus. In fact, you know what? Christianity was called that before. In the beginning, you read the book of Acts. They were called the way. Their movement, the church was called the way. Because we are to show them the more excellent way, the alternative way that leads to life. What way is that? The way of forgiveness. And the epistle reading today out of Romans chapter 5, St. Paul says that while we were yet sinners, guilty, deserving of punishment, if you would strictly follow the letter of the law, we were guilty, and yet, at that time, when we were pronounced guilty, God sent Jesus, His Son, to die for us. He chooses not to retaliate, not to pronounce not to invoke eye for eye, but to forgive. At that time, when we were enemies, when we were guilty sinners, He poured out His love for us. So our mission is to spread that good news. That God is in the business of forgiving, not in the business of retaliating and strictly adhering to the law that says eye for an eye, tooth for tooth. We're called to minister. We're sent to those who are lost, those who are guilty. Which brings us to the gospel. See, we need to not misunderstand who God is. God's heart is to reach out to the lost. The sick, the lepers, those who are ostracized by society. God's heart is after them. And He wants us to reach them. He wants to reach them through us. And He sends us to them, not to condemn them, but to forgive their sin. Jesus calls his disciples first. He calls them to himself first, so that through him they may know the Trinity. Remember last week, through him they can participate in the Godhead's communion of love. He called them individually by name. He called them to himself first, so that they may know God through him first, and then make him known, make his heart known, by proclaiming his kingdom. What is his kingdom about? What is his heart about? Healing the sick, the lepers, delivering the demon-possessed, those who are rejected by others because of their sin. We're not to evaluate their sin. We are not to evaluate, to highlight their guilt. We are to proclaim God's forgiveness and healing and restoration upon them, because that's what we received as well, his pardon. That's why Jesus said, freely you have received, now freely give. Remember this one person in the parable who was forgiven by his Lord of his debt of 10,000 talents? He was forgiven that much, and yet the small amount that was owed him by another, he wouldn't forgive. And God was very displeased of that attitude. See, we cannot repay hate, or we cannot overcome hate by hate. This was what Martin Luther King said. Hate cannot overcome hate. Violence cannot overcome violence. Force cannot overcome force. Only love can overcome those things. He further said, you think, though these oppressors, persecutors, you think you can oppress us, discriminate against us? The more you oppress us, the more you inflict pain on us, the more we will endure, the more we will forgive you, the more we will love you, because then we will overcome. All of us want to right the wrong. My question to you is, do you want to right the wrong around you? The way is not to use force against them. The way is not to play their game. The way is to bring the kingdom to them, the love of God to them. Then, that kindness of God will lead them to repentance. It's the Spirit that will change, this Spirit that will change your surroundings. It's the Holy Spirit of God that will renew the face of the earth. Remember our mission. Remember why we are Christians. Remember why we exist. Is to fulfill this mission, to spread this the gospel, this good news. God loves people, even sinners. God loves them. God has forgiven them. God is not angry at them. And God will never leave them nor forsake them. Because that's just the way it is in the kingdom of our